So, Mary Jo and I are in the space of the workshop right now. We are in kind of a preparation space for all of you who are in the journey of rewriting your story, of looking back and really looking at those pivotal moments that changed your perspective, the situations and the experiences that allowed you to grow and to evolve, and really kind of taking the space and the time to reflect on those moments within the dark night of the soul for some of you, or it could be just a major life transition, or maybe multiple major life transitions that created the, say, the raw earth to be able to plant new seeds.
Mm, I like
Kind
that.
of the metaphor that's coming through.
Right. The raw earth.
Yeah. And the space that we're creating to reflect is in a dragon cave. So we are deep inside of the earth right now. And I kind of want to just take a moment to see what arises from the heart space. So maybe if we can open up with like a little meditation
Okay.
and just inviting everyone to descend into your heart. And if you can find a still point inside of the center of your heart, and just allowing for that moment of truth to arise from within the stillness. What's coming up for you, Mary Jo?
Um, huh. So what first came up was just like this image of a little child staring at me and a comfortable chair. And it was just like it was an invitation to, I think, just come and sit.
Hmm. I think that's like a really beautiful kind of invitation. When you're like revisiting your story, can you invite your inner child?
Yeah.
As if like you're telling them a story. Get to tell your life story to your own inner child and say,
Right.
hey, look how far I've gone. Look where I've been. Look who I've become and who I'm becoming.
Yeah.
I got to see my family this weekend up in Philly for my sister's birthday. And my mom was there visiting. And in conversation, what came up was a book that was one of my favorite books as a kid. It was called Mr. Purryfur's Meandering Path. And
Hmm.
it was like a pretty big book for a little kid. It was like a substantial book, but it was mostly pictorial. And it was
Hmm.
about this cat named Mr. Purryfur, and he would go through like all of these magical lands.
Wow.
And it was just like this big adventure, and he would meet all of these creatures and different beings along the way, and he would see different forests and caves and go through this whole process. And
Wow.
I kind of think of that story when I'm going through the process of writing my own story,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's just amazing how like these themes from childhood carry over into the way that we tell stories about ourselves. And
Yeah.
like for me, it's like the way that I fit myself into my own life story. I can look back and see certain books that I've read as a kid.
Hmm.
And that's probably the earliest one that I can think of, maybe besides Dr. Seuss.
Right.
But those are a little bit more like ambiguous, not like as linear of a story.
Right.
Yeah.
The first story that I remember reading wasn't even reading, actually. I was too young to read, but I wanted to read. And so I picked up a book off of the shelf and sat down and started reading a story to myself from the book.
Do you remember what it was?
I don't know what the book, I couldn't read. I just took a book off, like, the adult bookshelf, opened it up, sat down, you know, and just started reading a story to myself.
Yeah, I love it.
So I have always been interested in books and stories, even before I could read.
Yeah. I mean, I was just thinking about this too, how like, I mean, there's something about being with family and then kind of having these like relationships to like how things were.
Mm,
Um, you know,
mhm,
and I was thinking a lot about books and how like in school growing up it was like school's out for the summer, but then you go through like, oh, what is my summer reading gonna be? And I
mhm,
haven't been like reading many books lately, and I was just thinking like, okay, well it's already midsummer, but what books do I still want to read until the end of the summer? But
mm.
it's like those themes that the books that we choose, I think coincide with like what we're going through in life too. So it kind of enriches our own story by diving into other stories too, you know?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of my favorite series as a young adult was the Trixie Belden series. I don't know.
I
She
haven't
was
heard
a
of it.
13-year-old detective
Oh
and
yeah.
her brothers and a friend up the hill would solve mysteries that were very, turned out to be very mundane things.
Yeah.
But it was fun because it was always trying to solve the mysteries around them.
Do you ever have like that relationship to your own story? Like, do you ever look back and think about what is the mystery that was being solved? Or like, does anything reveal itself kind of after the fact?
What a good question. I would say that there are so many mysteries that want to be solved or resolved. And I think that there's been points in my life when I'm like, yes, I understand the mystery, I have solved the mystery. But that the more you solve mysteries and the more you live through mysteries, the more you realize there are some mysteries that just won't be solved. You know.
Right. Or it's like almost just being comfortable living in the mystery.
Right, exactly, exactly. That it's like part of the whole point is the mystery.
Right. Right. That is like just such a hugely relevant topic right now, I think, and relevant for me personally because, well, today I'll back up and I'll say today is the feast day of Mary Magdalene.
Oh, okay.
And I've been really connected to the mystery of the feminine and what
Mm,
that means for me and my connection to the feminine energies. And so today I was inspired to go on a walk on a nature trail
hmm.
this morning. And I went out into the middle of a river and I sat on a rock and I asked to communicate with Mary Magdalene. And I was
Oh,
communicating with Mother Mary as well and Sophia.
wow.
And Kuan Yin came in on her water dragon. And the way I witness these energies is as beams of light. They're
Mm,
just like these big light beings. And I was kind of contemplating. I was contemplating today's conversation today and what might want to come through. And I was contemplating where I am in my life.
mm,
And in kind of going back and writing my own story and looking at these kind of igniting or initiatory experiences that I think are kind of pivotal transitions within my story.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of brought back full circle to a really specific story in connection to Mary Magdalene.
Oh.
And it was because it's her feast day that it came up. And I was like, oh, well, this is going to be a big part of the story that I'm writing, with this workshop with you. And I was like, I was tuning into this story of back in, I think it was 2019. I had just gone through divorce
Mm-hmm.
and I was selling a place that we had bought together and was in this big transition and kind of scared, to be honest. It was the first time I had been single my
Mm.
entire adult life.
Wow.
And I was really in a deep space of kind of figuring out who I was as a single person, as an autonomous singularity of a being instead of having this like kind of unit orientation. And I was really called to go camping and I wanted to do it by myself. I wanted to be out in the wilderness and I was just guided. And at this time I was reading a book by Tom Kenyon called The Magdalen Manuscript.
Mm.
And it was his channeled relationship with Mary Magdalene, and she was talking about her relationship with Jesus
Mm-hmm.
and basically reviewing kind of how she was able to access the mystery within her own body through breath and through opening up the energy channels,
Mm.
particularly through the root center.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like this image of a snake or maybe even a dragon opening up through that central channel. And,
Mm.
that can be done with another person or it can be done by yourself. And so I was kind of exploring my own breath and working through my own opening up, like in a much bigger way. And this experience, I think, was one of the biggest kind of chapter turning experiences within this last chapter of initiations
Mm-hmm.
on a spiritual level. And what had happened was I was reading this book and I was working through the energetic suggestions and breath. And I took myself out to go hiking in Colorado. I was living in Colorado at the time, and I
Mm-hmm.
took myself on a road trip. And I went from hot spring to hot spring, and every night I would camp outside the hot spring, like in a mountain valley or in a sand dune or just somewhere remote in a forest with nobody around.
Wow.
And I did it by myself. I had a little pup tent. And for the first night, I was camping right outside of Mount Princeton Hot Springs. And I found this campground in the middle of the mountain valley. And there was just, I remember there was an older couple who were kind of keeping track of the campground and taking care of things. But besides that, there was like nobody there. And at night, like the sun dipped down, it's pitch black out. And I was in my tent and I just heard this thump, 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 and it just stopped. And it came up to the tent, and I was like, I was so scared. I was just struck by fear, and I held my breath, and I was just like, and I was like, okay, if I breathe out really slowly, maybe nobody will hear me. I was like, it could be a mountain lion, it could be a yeti, it could be anything. And
Wow.
so I ended up falling asleep, and I didn't hear any other movements after that. But the next day, I drove out to the sand dunes and I camped outside the sand dunes. Same exact thing happened. It was just that thump, 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 thump. It was four thumps coming up to the tent, and I felt this kind of like celestial, otherworldly energy around me. Like it was just something, just this intuitive sense. Like I was working with the Magdalene energy and I was calling her in for protection and Mother Mary. And I was like just praying at that point because I was still scared and I just started moving my breath into my lower energy centers. Whereas the first night I was just locked up with that
Mm.
fear. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to kind of access fear differently this time. So I started breathing into my lower abdomen and opening up like this gentle flow, but as quietly as I could. I didn't want to be heard.
Right. In case the thumper was.
Yeah, in case the thumper wanted to, whatever. I don't know. This is just,
Hmm.
How I was thinking at the time.
Right.
And so that third night, I drove out 3.5 hours west to Pagosa Springs, and I camped about 45 minutes outside of the springs in a forest that was totally empty, no campers there, just empty camp spots. It was in June, and yeah, I mean, I don't know why there was nobody there, but it was just me. Same thing happened that night. Just the thump, thump, thump. And by then I was like, okay, I'm divinely guided. There's like I can sense that there's some there are these energies around me, and like it felt like off planet, like some other beings that were there around me. And at that point I was like, I'm just going to breathe and let go. I'm just going to surrender. And
Were
that
you
was it.
scared at
And
that
for the
point,
rest of
or?
that week, it didn't happen again. That was like my initiation. And I just felt
Mm.
so liberated. Like by that next morning, I drove out to Mesa Verde and I saw the ruins there. And I was just kind of like almost on a high. I was just elated because I felt this opening up, like I had gone through a threshold of opening up this fear within me that and just
Mm.
releasing it and allowing myself to access deeper. And
Wow,
yeah.
that's a good
And I
story.
think that's a big part of my story is like these kind of initiations
Hmm.
that open up into, you know, just like living more fully.
Right. And I mean, I think the other piece that's important to name is the fact that you did this consciously, like you did this intentionally.
Right. Well, I mean, I didn't know what would happen. For me, it was like I was kind of in this space of like I'm a free woman. I'm gonna go out and go on this adventure by myself, and I didn't expect any of that to happen.
Right. Well, I'm not saying that you knew that was going to happen, but I'm saying that you intentionally put yourself on a path
Right.
to allow yourself to move through whatever journey was going to present itself.
Right. And I was guided too, it was kind of a
Yes.
little bit of both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So trusting the guidance too.
Right.
Yeah. Wow.
Right.
And so if you had to untangle the mystery of this, what would you say that you gleaned?
Well, I think it's honestly, it's still unfolding.
Hmm.
To me, that kind of mysterious situation was almost like an initiation into my own body, into my
Mm.
own accessing and releasing some of the fear that I had held up until that point.
Hmm.
And like it created this greater freedom and it brought me into other experiences that I sought out afterward to open up on an energetic level even more. And so I'm still on that path. I mean, and especially with, I'm just reminded, by Mary Magdalene's feast day, but last night I was meditating and I was opening up even more through these lower centers. And like I've last year I experienced what I think was a Kundalini awakening when
Mm.
I heard about my former partner's passing,
Mm.
and it just opened up all my energy centers, and it was really disorienting and really big. Like, so I'm kind of going a little bit slower with myself now and just allowing myself to feel like these natural rhythms and pulsations within my body.
Hmm.
But it feels very deeply connected to the earth and very deeply connected to the feminine mystery.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that looks and feels different for every single person, but it's really big. And
Yes.
yeah, I mean, it's like I've had these kind of oscillating experiences throughout the years since that first initiatory experience.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and I don't know. I mean, it is a mystery, so I don't know what it's leading to. I don't know.
Right.
I just know from my own guidance that I'm meant to slow down and to listen deeper
Mm.
and to remember deeper because that's where, for me, it's like I there are aspects to it that I am starting to remember, and there is a much bigger story, probably for another podcast or another
Right,
conversation.
right. Waiting to be told.
Hmm. But I'm curious, like in your story, do you feel like there were any kind of birth portals or initiations that you went through?
I would say the one that comes to mind most um vividly would almost be in a way, first a death portal and then a birth portal, rebirth maybe portal, which was that choice point after my late husband died.
Mhm.
And, really that just moment of this hurts so much. And the weight was just so much that it was like could just fall down and not get up. And at that moment, really being um, given a choice, being given a choice. Yep, you can do that, or you can stand up and choose to live again, you know. And you start slow. You start by just standing up, and then you take a step,
Right.
and then you take another step. And each step is an affirmation that, yes, I want to live, and yes, I want to um, move um, forward, move out of um, the uh, the weight, the crushing weight,
Right.
and be able to, bear it, stand and bear it. I think is and then move with it, as opposed to letting it completely um, crush me.
Mm. I'm just like I can't imagine how much strength it took to lift yourself up throughout that process or to take those baby steps,
Hmm.
however big or small.
Yeah. Well, I guess in the moment, it didn't necessarily feel like as seismic of a moment as when you look back on it, it is.
Mm-hmm.
But it definitely was a turning point, and it was definitely a choice.
Mm. Mm. I'm
And
curious, were there any like new people that came into your life when you started making those choices to take those steps? Or like were there any situations that arose? Um,
um, it took a little while. I think in the very, very beginning, it was really just I would say coming back into my own life. Um,
Mhm.
And so being able to actually just move in my own life first, and then be able to, expand beyond that.
Right.
And but the people who were in my life were very supportive and very helpful at the time. And it was really a gift to be able to have that kind of support.
Right. Mm. Yeah, like the image I get is like a cloud lifting over time.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, kind of like being in the fog, dense, dense fog, and not being able to see your way through, and then having it just like get
Yeah.
lighter and brighter.
Yeah. What's coming to mind for some reason, if there's anybody listening who is in it or more deeply in it right now, and you don't see that sense of support or feel that sense of support in your life, I want to remind you that you can always ask. and that there's power in that to ask for support. And then it may come from directions or people or situations that you may not expect.
Yeah. And just being open.
Yeah, just being open to receiving.
Hmm.
Yeah, I've definitely gotten to like deep dark pits in my own journey where it felt like there was no support at all
Hmm.
and you just feel like you're utterly and completely alone. And it's just not true.
It's not true.
It's just
Right.
not. It's just not. I mean, it can feel that way, but like it's like almost like I imagine that everyone has a guidance field, whether you're connecting with that from a standpoint of like your ancestors or, you know, angels, whatever,
Hmm.
saints, other beings,
Hmm.
spirit guides, whatever that is for you. It's like they're there the whole time just watching. And then there's like your vaster non-physical self. He's like this big, expansive, all-knowing being that knows everything about you all the time, but it can like look down and watch you
Hmm.
going through it. And I kind of imagine that sometimes, or if like I'm in it and then I tune into like, okay, who's watching right now? Or like that I'm not just in it. It's like,
Right.
you know,
Yeah. Well, I would even say that when I was at that choice point, um, I wouldn't say that I felt totally alone. It was like there was a support or guidance happening at that moment too. Do you know what I mean? Like,
right.
um, like it was like being laid out that there's a choice.
Hmm.
Um,
Well,
hard.
that's like when I was in the forest,
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
choice point was letting go and allowing myself to be supported. Because
Mm.
I didn't have another choice. I was like, okay, either I get like mauled by an animal.
Whoever's thumping
I
outside the
could,
tent.
yeah, I could pray or I could just let go and know that and trust that I'm being supported.
Hmm.
Because that's the only other choice. That or, you know, teeth clenching frozen fear and not being able to sleep all night or like peeping outside my tent. Like,
Right. Exhausting yourself from
yeah.
the fear.
At a
Yeah.
certain point, it's like not worth it.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you noticed in that moment, that you too had a choice and that you weren't alone in that choice.
Yeah, exactly. It's like just bringing to mind like no choice is ever made alone.
Mm.
It's like, yes, we make our own choices, but it's still part of something bigger,
Mm.
you know?
Hmm. Wow.
There's a bigger story. And then
Right.
our story weaves in with other people's stories and that's part of the mystery too, is like we never know
Right.
how our stories are going to intersect with other people's stories.
Right.
And
Right.
you may meet just the right person at the right time.
Hmm. Yeah.
And then whenever things bifurcate, you both go down your own paths.
Yeah.
Whatever was meant to happen happened. And without those two stories coming together, then neither of you would have the option or ability to move on your individual perspective paths,
Mm. Yeah.
you know?
And who did you meet differently, or did people come into your life after your camping trip,
Oh
your
man, so
initiation?
many people. I mean, I would have to like sit down and really contemplate like who are the big players that really changed things for me. But I mean, people came in all shapes and sizes and colors and ages and
Mm-hmm.
um, in unexpected ways, sometimes just short encounters and just meeting the right person and hearing what I needed to hear. Sometimes like longer term friendships or teachers or mentors or
Right.
facilitators that like just help me, you know, get my head back on, wherever I was if I was feeling lost. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah. I think my biggest struggle throughout all of it was constantly
Mm,
forgetting about the support and like having ample evidence all the
mm,
time and just, falling back into the slipstream of doubt
right.
and then having yet another person come by and pull me out of my own puddle.
Mm, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean that's part of the whole, like regulation versus dysregulation. And one of the ways to regulate is co-regulate people. People need people.
Right. Right. And I think we can all relate with COVID,
Mm.
and how that
Mhm.
really showed that to so many people that it's like you cannot do this human thing on your own. Isolating is not the answer.
Right. No, no, no. People we're meant to do this together.
Yeah. And I think it's true of like even just coming together to write our own stories in community
Hmm.
and to be able to share some of those things that
Yeah.
were those pivotal moments, because then we teach each other through story too. And it's like how many times do you hear someone else's story and
Hmm.
then it like helps you remember a piece of your own story
Right.
or something that like you didn't realize about yourself because you see the other person going through the same type of thing.
Right. Right. And you realize, oh, you know, I had that brave moment too, or I had that, you know, um, moment of fear and initiation, or I had that opportunity to let go.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's part of what we're going to be taking people through. Some of the events are somewhat predictable in a way, but the way that they happen and the unique gifts and the unique wisdom and experience that come through are completely your own. And so we're kind of designing a template, I would say, to help you go through and make sense of it through your own contemplation and through your own inner alchemy.
Hmm. And then
And
sharing
through
it.
writing, through written, and maybe even spoken word. If you want to share your story, if you want to read your story out loud to yourself,
Mhm.
that's incredibly powerful. If you've ever written something that, or read out loud something that you've written and then listened to yourself reading it,
Mhm.
that's a really powerful experience.
Yeah. Speaking it into being.
So, if you are interested in joining us, we will be sharing more information in the description for this talk. And I hope you can join us next Tuesday for our next talk in the flight of the Phoenix.
Bye for now.